Hey guys, Marissa at KitchenTableStamper.com. Today I've got a fun You're Simply the Best note card for you. This is the card for Coffee and a Card this month, or for the second half of this month. I do Coffee and a Card every other Wednesday in my Rolling Meadows home studio, and this is the card that we're going to make tomorrow actually. Alright, so let's get started with the Stampin' Up! Supplies that you need for this You're Simply the Best card. Couple of housekeeping things that I want to fill you in on as we go. So my background stamp for this card is the marbled background, and I'm featuring the Varied Vases bundle, the Vase Builder Punch and the Varied Vases stamp set. Varied Vases is a 34-piece photopolymer stamp set, and when you bundle it together with the Vase Builder Punch, you can save 10%. We're coming up on the end of our annual catalog period. The 2018-2019 catalog is going to expire in June, so it's that time again to start thinking about what bundles in the annual catalog do you have your eye on and picking them up before they unbundle, before the 10% discount is gone. So that's one of the reasons why I've focused on the Varied Vases bundle for this card this time of year. Other things that we're focusing on are the Petal Promenade Designer Series paper and the Pearlized Doilies. I wanted to bring those to your attention too from the annual catalog. Right now you can get those consumables free with a $50 purchase. So they're beautiful embellishment and designer series paper. You get 2 packages of the Pearlized Doilies free with your $50 purchase if that's what you choose. But some new celebration items. We're in the last 2 weeks of celebration, and there's some new and exciting consumable choices, and we're going to feature those on this card. And then the last bit of housekeeping, we're going to use Powder Pink Stampin' Pad and Lemon Lime Twist Stampin' Pad. Now these are the 2017-2019 in colors, and it's that time of year again. If you've got the in color ink pads, it's time to pick up your re-inkers. They will sell out quickly once the retirement list is announced. If you haven't gotten these in colors yet, the 2017-2019 in colors, now's the time. Get your cardstock and your ribbon, your re-inkers and your ink pads, because as soon as the retirement list is posted, these sure to retire items sell out very quickly, and especially re-inkers. The secondary market can be kind of tough on that. So just public service, get your 2017-2019 in colors and get them during celebration where you can earn some free gifts for your purchases. I'm using my bouquet bunch framelits for this pretty little leaf element. Layering Circles framelits dies. We're going to use both the smooth circle and the scallop circle. This is the 2 3/8 inch circle, and this is the 2 5/8 inch scallop. My embellishments, I have the braided linen trim. This is carryover from the holiday catalog, and those pearlized doilies that we were talking about. So this is the pearlized doilies. I've got half of one for this card. On one side they're flat white, and on the other side they have this beautiful pearl sheen. They're a gorgeous little embellishment. Alright, my consumable supplies. Oh, you'll need an aqua painter and a Memento Tuxedo black ink pad. My consumable supplies for this project. This is 8.5 by 5.5 and scored at 4 1/4. I've got a scrap of Lemon Lime Twist, scrap of Whisper White, those are for stamping, die cutting, and a scrap of Berry Burst, another in color from the 2017-2019 collection. I cut my 2 5/8 inch scallop from Berry Burst and my 2 3/8 inch circle from Whisper White. My designer series papers are from the Petal Promenade Designer Series paper collection. We've got a beautiful floral here, and it's got a kind of a pale pink marble on the back. This is 3 3/4 by 2 1/4. I've got another piece of the Petal Promenade Designer Series paper here. It's floral on one side, a little bit different, a little bit more multicolor than the one we're using, and then white marble on the back side. The white marble Designer Series paper is 3.5 by 5/8. And then I've got a piece of the 6 by 6 2017-2019 Designer Series paper in Berry Burst stripes. This is 1 by 3.5. All right, I think that covers all of the materials you need for this project. Let's get started with a little bit of stamping, shall we? Okay, so we're going for a beautiful watercolor effect here. If you look at my vases, you can see the water and what the water has done to the ink. It's puddled a little deeper in some areas, a little washed out in others. And same with the leaves here. That technique is just a little bit wet. So we want to start there and then give it some time to dry in between stages. We'll do our colorful stamping first. And when you're stamping with the varied vases, you want to pay attention to the vase builder punch. So you see, when we feed in the paper from the top of the punch, the vase is going to be upside down. So we want to make sure that we can punch these easily. So we want to stamp upside down. Always check your orientation of your punch before you stamp. The other thing is I'm using very small little scraps here for my stamping and punching. So I'm going to have a small little bit of white cardstock. You can use any color, any scrap that's around, with a little bit of dry adhesive at the end. That's going to give me a handle so I can really manipulate these smaller scraps inside the punch. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take both of our vases. We're going to start with the one, and we're going to ink it so that the top of the vase is not inked at all. We're going to take our aqua painter, give it a squeeze and get it really good and wet, and make sure that it's nice and clear. We're going to go in on this stamp and we're going to very carefully add some water to the ink. And we want to move that water all the way across the image where the ink is. Now, too much water and this will just squirt out the edges, be a big mess. So I just use the edge of the towel there to take off any excess. And then we're going to stamp it upside down, remember? So we'll stamp upside down. And that's it. We're just going to leave it to dry however it turns out. The ink is going to pool, the water is going to spread it, and we get the results we get, and that's the beauty of it. It's going to even dry different than it looks here. And the same thing with the second vase. I'm going to fill about 3/4 with ink, and then take a really wet aqua painter and just dab over that ink and add the water. Now, if there's too much ink, you can dab just a little bit away, or if there's too much water, you can dab just a little bit away. We don't want to make it sloppy. We just want it to have that watercolor effect. And we're going to stamp this vase upside down also. That's it. We just want to leave that to have its effect. All right, then for the leaves, we're going to do kind of the same thing. Grab another scrap of white here. Lots of scraps of white for this project. We want to pay attention to the way that that's going to punch, and you want to stamp it the same way. So we're going to ink up our leaf with some lemon lime twist, and then make sure that you got a clean aqua painter. You don't want to bring pink into your lemon lime twist. We're going to just dab the water along that leaf, and then stamp it in the way that it's going to go into the punch. We'll do that again. We'll ink up and just wet the ink. Too much ink and you'll distort, or too much water and you'll distort the image. So don't overdo it, just dab a little bit on. And we need 2 leaves. So we'll do one at each end of this scrap. Now that needs to dry before we add the memento over the top for the outlines. So we're going to set that aside for a minute, and we're going to work on our card base, which we're also going to give a fun watercolor effect to. So we've got our marble backgrounds. Oh, I need that for punching. I'll just stick it to the punch for now. We're going to ink up the marble with the powder pink. You're on a good full strength inking here. Once you've inked it fully, you're going to do your first impression on scratch paper. This is going to be a second generation, but not just second generation. We're going to take the second generation ink, and then we're going to spritz it. I find that my marble background is just a little bit too like pixelated for my taste. So to do that second generation ink that's also been spritzed, I find gives a more realistic marbling, less like pixelated, or it looks less like a photograph. So we're gonna cover, after you add the card base, cover the stamp, or the card and the stamp, and just burnish until your fingertips have run over the entire card. And lift, and you'll see you get a real soft, kind of realistic marble. And we're gonna have to set that aside for a minute to dry too. All right, so our watery images are all drying. Let me put this on top of here so I don't ruin anything. Now let's bring in our Stampin' Pierce mat again. So we've got our circle here. We're gonna need some Memento Tuxedo Black now. Piece of scratch paper underneath the circle because we're going to stamp off the edge, and we're going to bring in this little spray of small flowers. You don't want to ink much of the stem, just the flowers. We're going to add it at an angle and just hanging off the top edge here. You see that? And next up, we need the stem for the tulips. Now, the stem for the tulips to curve off to the left is the same as the one to curve off to the right. So we're going to ink half at a time. We're going to start with the half that curves to the left a bit. And we're going to add that stem in here. Now you can see that my stem kind of comes up and points to the flowers that we've just stamped. And then we have to clean with the chamois, and then we're going to ink up the other half of the stamp. So flip and ink, and now this one comes up in the opposite direction. It kind of curves off to the other side. And there's our second little tulip. Okay, so we've got our memento lines stamped in. The next thing I want to do is take an aqua painter. Again, that's clean. We want to make sure that we're not mixing our colors. And I'm going to just really pick up a lot of lemon lime twist ink on my aqua painter. Then I'm going to move my card at a safe distance and cover my surface. I want to really protect. And then I'm just going to tap the aqua painter on my finger. What that's going to do is that's going to put little droplets of lemon lime twist ink in the background. It's a little spatter. It just adds a little bit more of that lemon lime twist to the project. So once you've splattered, and that is completely your option. Some people like that and think it's artistic, and some people think it looks a little bit sloppy. So do what you like there. You can spatter those little drips of lemon lime twist if you like. All right, let that dry for just a second while we bring our vases back in here. And our leaves. These are dry enough now for us to bring the memento in and stamp over. So we're going to take the outline of our vases, ink up in memento, and stamp over our pretty watercolor wash. There's our tall vase and our little curvy vase. Let's get that guy going. And we're stamping on dry surface now, which is very important for memento. And the water might have gone out of the lines just a little bit. Don't worry about it. When you punch it out, it's going to look just so beautiful. And then the leaves, we're going to put the outline on the leaves. Okay, we've got our memento and we're stamping. Let's grab that scrap of Berry Burst. And we're gonna stamp ourselves 2 little tulips. The littlest piece will do for this. Well, we've still got all of our ink and our Stampin' Pierce mat. Let's move some of these things that need punching to the side and bring in this little spray of flowers to fill in. We're gonna stamp over our memento image here and fill these little flowers in with some powder pink. Beautiful. And let's see here, I think we're nearly done. I forgot my Berry Burst ink, another 2017-2019 in color. Gonna need that one for your sentiment. Let's grab our marble paper. So we want this beautiful little marble background paper here. We're gonna ink up our sentiment in the Berry Burst. And stamp it pretty close to the left, just enough so that there's room to dovetail that end. The right side should be pretty open because we're going to add a bow embellishment. So it's going to get stamped left of center. Give your ink a second to transfer. You are simply the best. I love that. All right, I think our stamping is done. We'll see as we go if I forgot anything. I'm gonna grab the Big Shot next, clear away the ink pads, get the Big Shot, and we're gonna do a quick bit of die cutting. Okay, so I got my Big Shot all set up for die cutting. Got that leaf die here. We don't need the stem, so you can just cut the leaves, it's okay. I love this pretty little leaf to just add a little more pop of that lemon lime twist that I was looking for. It's a simple, inexpensive embellishment that just brings in a little bit more of that green freshness and that botanical feel. Okay, so let's get all of our parts back in here and then we'll assemble. I'm gonna start now with punching. We're gonna punch our tall vase image, and because that's so far down in the bottom of the punch, we got a small scrap here. I'm just taking that strip that we prepared earlier, holding on to my scrap. I can use this strip to manipulate that and get that right centered in the punch. There's our pretty little vase. And then the tulip. Both leaves. And see, so we paid attention to which way the punch was oriented before we started stamping, and that has saved us so much difficulty. It's a really very important step. Now we can just line everything we made right up the way it should be and punch out with very little difficulty. I got my handle back just in case. Let's see if we can do this one without. Yeah, this scrap is big enough to do without the handle. So we're just lining up our little vase and pop it out. Like I said, even if the color runs out of the lines just a little bit, it's still such a beautiful watercolor effect. You don't even notice, especially once the finished project has come together. Okay, so we're going to dovetail our little sentiment. And we've got some dry adhesive. I'm going to adhere my circle to my scallop circle. Okay, and then with dimensionals, I'm going to adhere my vases with dimensional adhesive. Okay, now placement here is important. You've got to keep in mind that these vases are going to sit on a flat surface. So the bottom of one vase has got to be level with the bottom of the other, but you still want to cover your stems there. Very nice. Next up, we're going to get our multi-purpose liquid glue and add our little tulips. And I love the overlap here of the tulip over the little spray of flowers in the other vase. And then a second little tulip. We just want it to go to the edge but not over because of the berry burst layer underneath. We don't want to lose any definition of our tulip, so right to the edge but not over. And then our leaves. Our leaves are a little bit longer than they need to be. So we want one to go off to the left and one off to the right. And you'll notice that the same leaf can be used, just which side goes up determines which way the leaf kind of tapers off to. So I've cut the length appropriately, and we'll just adhere those with a dab of multi-purpose liquid glue right underneath the vase, but not past the edge. We want to make sure we keep that realistic look that they're inside the vase. So pretty. All right. Now at this point, our card base should be dry enough to take adhesive. So we're going to put some adhesive on the back of our floral and on the back of our stripe. And on the back of the stripe, I'm going up the edges, but I'm also going to go across the bottom, because here's where we can bring in this piece of doily. And I'm going to go with less than half here. We might even have to trim down the top so that doesn't stick up off this over the top of our designer series paper here. We're looking for almost a scallop look instead of a circular or round look, so it's going to go up real high. Now we'll adhere that about an inch from the bottom of the card. And the floral designer series paper just overlapping. And now our beautiful medallion with the vases. And you'll see that that's going to go just peeking over the designer series paper here. And better. All right, you're simply the best. Now before I add my adhesive, because I thought it was kind of fun, I brought in a little mini stapler. I took my braided linen trim and tied a bow. And then what I'm gonna do, ribbon scissors are so much sharper. I'm gonna cut off the excess. I'm still gonna grab a glue dot because I want it secure in place. I don't want it to move while I'm messing with it. But what I did was I added my bow on the sentiment panel here so it doesn't cover the sentiment. Then I grabbed my little tiny stapler and just stapled through it twice. And you want to flatten that out. If you have to, you can turn it over at this point and you can really crunch them down a little bit with the end of your bone folder. And then you'll run some adhesive straight across. That way you've got the fun little staple look, that little extra texture and shine. It's a small, small detail. But the staples aren't on the inside of the card, which is very important to me. They're hidden in between the layers. I'm adding just a little bit of multi-purpose liquid glue, and I did not burnish down my sentiment yet, because that's gonna just peek right out from underneath there. So we want to go ahead and kind of position that. We'll burnish down that little leaf and then burnish down our sentiment panel. I want to make sure that that goes nice and level across the card. And there it is. We did it. You're simply the best. All right, if you got any questions about the Stampin' Up unbundling, if you got questions about the retiring in color palette, or you'd like to acquire some of those retiring in colors, again, reach out, Marisa at kitchentablestamper.com. You can shop 24/7 at marisaalvarez.stampinup.net. All right, guys, you are simply the best. Thanks for watching.